the Mets had no answers for the Dodgers hitting. Listen, you're scoring 10 runs a game. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, you're expecting 3-2 games, 4-3 games, that kind of thing. And that wasn't the case in this particular series. I mean, the Mets pitchers were just gassed and didn't have anything left and were gone, especially last night. And, this whole love affair with Kodai Senga, I mean, hopefully he comes back next year and he's the starter that we all expect him to be, the ace of the staff, all of that kind of good stuff. But, he was, they pressed him into service. He didn't do anything, and it really was, except for his first outing where he gave up a home run on his first first at bat, and then next thing you know, he was just basically torched after that. So I don't know. It was a great season. It was an exciting season. I was glad they won for you on Friday night. Yeah, and I was glad that if that was going to be their last game at Citi Field, that's the way they were going to go out. That they went out with a fight, that they took it back to L.A., and that they didn't lose on their home field.
Yeah, I mean, you know what it felt like? It felt like it was the end of the year party for Mets fans. Where we knew full well that there was a chance that they were going to lose either Game 6 or Game 7. You were hopeful that they wouldn't, but it was almost like, let's just get together one more time and just have a great night with this team. And many people felt the same way. Now, I know there's a bunch of fans of other teams and Yankees fans and their teams going to the World Series, and they'll be center stage for a while. They're like, man, you don't get these opportunities a lot. How can you say it's a great season when you don't win a championship? Because I think, as you get older and you experience a lot of these losses and all these things, like, you think to yourself, like, what am I really watching sports for? Right? Like, this is the epiphany that I had. Because there were so many years that I'm like, all I had was those bad memories, those bad losses, right? And I'd regurgitate them to you over and over and over and over again because those were my memories. They didn't win a championship and it ended. But I'm like, God, there's one team that wins at the end. There's one team.
Don't I know that?
Right. And
yes, I know that very well.
And if I can't take something out of a special year like that, what are we doing? And
it really was a special year, especially the second half of the season.
This is a team that now is in, because the Mets history is not like the Yankees history. This is a team that will live on forever now. I know that they got eliminated in 6 games in the NLCS, but the way that it happened, who was doing it, the 2024 Mets will be a reference point for a long time. And those guys should be very, very proud of that. And going forward, it's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be tough to capture that same type of magic again. But, David Stearns in his first year did a lot of great things. And hopefully this is only the beginning. But I don't know how many times we have said that before with this organization, thinking, hell, they'll get back. And they don't. But we could talk plenty about the offseason and Pete Alonso and all of that stuff. And they also, they lost to a better team. You don't feel like they beat themselves.
No, I felt like they could not get the Dodgers out.
Right.
And then
they got beat.
And even listen, the Mets had their chances last night. They had numerous opportunities with the bases loaded and couldn't come through. Whether it be Jeff McNeil swinging at a pitch 3 feet out of the strike zone, or Jesse Winker flying out. I mean, they had their opportunities last night, and unfortunately they didn't come through. But again, in baseball, the Dodgers did come through. Yeah. And so I don't know if it's look, the Mets scored 5 runs last night. I mean, you'd like to think that your pitching is going to keep the other team under 5 runs, Yeah. But the pitching just got basically murdered this whole series.
Yeah, and it was almost like it was this set up in a way, like the way the broadcast was talking about Manaea. It's almost like they knew he was going to not be good last night. And you're right about the top of the third was the one for me where it felt like every other loss.
Yeah, because the bottom of the third came right after the top of the third.
Well, right, exactly. So when they don't score with the bases loaded there, I said, this just feels exactly like these other losses where now the Dodgers are going to tack on and the Mets aren't going to be able to keep up and they're not getting that huge hit, and that's exactly the way that it went. But it was funny to me because in that game, in Game 2, they didn't talk on the broadcast at all about the amount of innings that Sean Manaea had thrown and how it was so much more than he had thrown in his entire career. Not once they were really talking about that, but this
Last
game,
night they talked about
right,
it.
over and over and
At the
over
beginning
again.
of the game, yeah, in the pregame, yeah.
Right, and I understand that part of the reason why they did that is because the start that he had in game 2, Carlos Mendoza said that he hit a wall at about 80 pitches, so that conversation sort of opened up from there. But, I mean, it was almost as if Tom Verducci, Ken Rosenthal, and John Smoltz knew that he was going to go out there and look like he was gassed. And, he was. And it's just a shame. And there's a couple of those Dodgers pitchers they let off the hook, too. These guys coming in, the relievers in this bullpen game, they're throwing the ball all over the place.
Well, they said, listen to the way the game started, to get the one run in the first inning. One of their top guys throwing the ball all over the place.
Give it right back in the bottom.
And I kind of understand what John Spaltz was talking about. He goes, these guys are used to coming in late in the game now. Starting the game is completely different. You're all amped up. You want to go out there. You want to throw the ball 100 miles an hour. This guy is throwing the ball, over the backstop, for God's sake.
Yeah.
I mean, he was all over the place. And this is the other thing that, the other pregame guys were talking about, Alex and Derek and Big Poppy. They were talking about, getting off to a good start and seeing whether or not this bullpen game is going to be really crazy and the decisions that Dave Roberts is going to make. And I mean, all that stuff, came to fruition. I mean, like, you were thinking about, okay, what is Dave Roberts going to do now? And to me, the guy that nobody could hit was Tynan.
Yeah.
That guy was unbelievable. That guy has got some sort of stuff. Now, if I am David Stearns and I looked at what I dealt with just now with the Dodgers, that's what you got to build. You got to build guys or the team like with a bunch of guys like that in your bullpen, because your bullpen is not very good. I mean, Stanek was decent. Edwin Diaz was good last night. So he came through last night and he was fine. But, you got to add better bullpen arms than what the Mets had. I mean, if Phil Maton's going to be your guy, he just looks like he's a batting practice pitcher.
Yeah, I know. And I know that he had some success in the regular season. But, I mean, just seeing him in the postseason against these lineups, he's like throws like basically a 90-mile-an-hour fastball, which in today's game is like, a 75.
You got to have like 3 or 4 other pitchers if you're going to be able to do that and be successful.
Yeah. So I mean, listen, I trust David Stearns. And another thing that you got to love is, and I know we've said this before, like with Buck Showalter, his first year in 2022, and how great they were. You're like, oh man, they feel like you got the foundation here, but. I really do think they've got the right guys. I mean, I say this now. Now, I try.
Well, they found a star in Vientos.
No. I'm talking about to run the organization.
Oh, I see.
Stearns and Mendoza. Like, I feel like they've got the right guys there. But, after Brian Daboll's first season, I said, I feel like they got the right guys here. So I don't know how it's going to go. I know that it's going to be very tough to recreate the special nature of what happened. And is this a World Baseball Classic year, by the way, coming up?
I have no idea.
The reason
Just
why
Google it.
The reason why I asked this, I was driving in, I was like, because I was thinking about how special 2022 was, and I felt like the World Baseball Classic effed the Mets' entire season that year. Not only because Edwin Diaz got hurt, but they had a ton of guys playing. They weren't together. They were all exhausted when they came back. They got back to a terrible start, and like the whole season was effed because of that. Oh, so it's 26.
All right, so good. Wow. Whew, thank God. So this is where David Stearns has got to rebuild the team. You got to figure out who he wants in his starting rotation. He's got to rebuild the bullpen without question. I mean, you see what the Dodgers did. I mean, and you see how good they are up and down the lineup.
Well, that's the thing about them. I mean, so it's not just, Betts and Ohtani. It's Tommy Edman. It's Kike Hernandez.
Teoscar Hernandez.
Teoscar, well, he was a 0 for the entire series until last night. He was a literal 0. He was 0 for 18.
But the guys, there's always going to be guys in the lineup. Like our Francisco Alvarez found his game the last 2 games.
He did, which was great.
His offensive game.
Yeah, which was awesome.
Very happy for that kid and happy for the way he ended it.
Yes, absolutely 100%. But yeah, I mean, they were relentless. I mean, guys like Max Muncy are just so valuable. I mean, and that's going to be the toughest thing for the Yankees.
And you had a hobbled Freddie Freeman throughout this whole thing.
Yeah, and we'll see what type of impact he has. Going to have a lot of time off now. Didn't play last night. Game 1 is Friday. So we'll see if he can get himself in better shape to be in the lineup every day in the World Series. But, this is exactly what a Major League Baseball official wants in a World Series.
100%,
as
yes.
big as it gets. If they could pick a matchup in the World Series every year, it would be this.
Yeah, you get $1 billion worth of players playing.
Right. And Ohtani and Judge. I mean, it's huge. I mean, it's absolutely huge. So
It could be interesting to see how the Yankee bullpen handles this team in the World Series. I mean, to me, that is the starters. I think they'll be okay for the most part, but it really, and we just lived it, folks. It's going to be this bullpen of the Dodgers versus whether or not your swing and miss team is going to hit home runs or strike out.
Yes, and I also want to see this Dodgers rotation because there's no doubt about it. I mean, that the Yankees have more firepower in their lineup than the Mets had. Now, the Mets were relentless offensively when they get going. They get going. Obviously, Friday night, they didn't strike out. They were just one after another. But, consistently, you talk about, Soto and Judge and the way that Stanton's hitting the ball. And, I mean, they've got more hitters. So let's
Gleyber Torres, by the way.
Right, is very good in the postseason. So seeing the weaknesses with the Dodgers and, what type of clarity are you going to get? How many bullpen games they toss, like how is that going to work against the Yankee lineup is going to be interesting as well.
I think for us around here, we would love the Subway Series, but for baseball overall in general, this is the World Series that they wanted. This is the big teams. This is the stars. This is the name recognition players, name recognition when it comes to the teams themselves. And hopefully they play competitive, compelling games as opposed to going back and forth 10-2, 11-2, 11, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to see competitive games where we're all sitting there in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning. And, the manager's decisions come into play. The individual relief pitchers are on the match. They're all going to be involved.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see how these matchups end up playing out. And it, quite frankly, should be a very competitive World Series because, like you said, the Yankees have legitimate stars that actually are living up to their names. And Judge is still
not quite there.
Not quite there yet, and maybe he's just waiting to have his breakout World Series moment.
Yeah, and I'm happy that we have the Yankees to talk about in the World Series. There's no two ways about it. It's great for the radio stations, great for the Yankee fans, it's great for all the shows here. There's no doubt about it. But I mean, I'm a little bummed. I'm a little bummed that we don't have our Subway Series. I'm a little bummed.
Of course,
I mean, I don't want the negative emotions to be the ones that drive today because I really wanted to have a different perspective on what happened.
Hey, dude. But negative emotions are being driven by the game we did yesterday over in the Netherlands.
Dude,
Holy God!
I tried. I went like acupuncture yesterday to try to forget that. I went to all sorts of I went to a what do they call it, a hypnotist. I went to that too.
Man, you talk about an ass kick.
Please,
holy Christ!
Please let me forget this football game.
That was a humiliating ass kicking yesterday by the Eagles, and that's kind of like also what's kind of fueling us this morning. That. And then another second half complete and utter meltdown by the Jets.
Yep. So
you got three things that we're dealing with this morning where we're supposed to be the place for the fans to get it off their chest.